These 3 books will make you smarter than 99% of people. Not just smarter in the sense that you have more knowledge, smarter in the way you conduct your life, smarter in the types of decisions you make, and how fulfilled your life is as a result of these 3 books. Let's get into it. The first book is called Alter Ego, and this is one that I was highly skeptical about. And I'll tell you why I read this book. I recently did a keynote speech, and I'm usually a low energy guy. When you talk to me one-on-one, I'm pretty low energy. When I step on stage, I become some sort of stand-up comedian. I completely change the person. And the moment I step off stage, I go right back into who I was before. And I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out why is it that I'm so quiet otherwise, but I'm on stage and I'm a completely different person, and it's almost like a different personality. And someone from the audience once came to me and said, Yasser, you're so down to earth. On stage, you look like a rock star, but here you're very personable. It's interesting how you can just make that switch. So I started researching this, and turns out it's a real phenomenon that he covers in this book called Alter Ego, which is that many celebrities create this personality, this persona that they turn on and off when they need to, depending on the situation. A famous one is Beyonce, who had this alter ego, meaning a different identity, called Sasha Fierce. She would be very anxious behind the scenes when she was going to perform at a concert, and she would feel really scared. So she created this personality called Sasha Fierce, who was this confident person who loved the crowd, would do amazing, and whatever people can say, she could take it. And when she came backstage, she turned back into herself. And I had a lot of conflicting opinions on this because I thought, okay, but this is you being fake, right? But so many other celebrities did this exact same thing. Kobe Bryant did the same thing with the Black Mamba. And the reason this works is it creates this separate identity that you have associated with certain characteristics. So let's say you don't feel confident, you feel like you're on stage and you can't speak confidently, you can't be loud. The moment you create a different identity, now it's not you having to change yourself and all of a sudden develop those qualities. This new identity already has those. So you just snap your fingers, turn into this person for that 1 hour, and then you go back to being yourself. Think about it like this. If I told you for the next half an hour, just imitate this celebrity or imitate this person, just act like them, you would be able to act like them. But if someone criticized you and said, hey, I don't like what you're doing, I don't like the way you talk, you wouldn't feel offended, or at least as offended, because it's not really you. It's not really the you that you're used to. It's this new identity. So in a way, it creates this shield where no matter what happens to you, no matter what people say, that shield, that mask, that identity can protect you. That alter ego can protect you from that. And you feel like, hey, it's not me they hate. It's not me they're judging. It's this alter ego they're judging. And this alter ego can handle that. So it's really about identity change. And for me, I realized the importance of this, because if I'm feeling nervous before a speech, which by the way, I still do, I can just snap my finger and I give myself a name. One of my favorite speakers of all time, her name is Carla Harris. And she steps on stage and she just owns this stage. She has this 200% confidence. So I'll literally tell myself, Yasser, this is your Carla Harris switch. Turn Carla Harris on. And right before I step on stage, I'm visualizing Carla Harris speak, and I step on stage and I completely change as a person. And it's still me. I'm not consciously trying to be someone else, but just a subtle reminder, it brings all the qualities that I need for that moment. And when I'm off stage, I go right back into the person that I want to be. So you can develop different alter egos depending on what you need. If you're with your children, you could have one. If you're with employees, you could have one. You're at work, you're at school, you can have a different one. So create these pockets of identities that make you feel safe, that make you feel confident around the skills and qualities that you need to have in that moment. So that's the biggest thing that I got from this book, Alter Egos. Now, this second book, it scared me. It really scared me, but it also fundamentally changed my life. The book is called The Power of Moments. What I got out of this book is just a true appreciation of how little time we have on this planet and how we should make the most of our lives. Because when I'm working, I'm in this room, these 4 walls, looking at this camera, looking at the computer. This is pretty much my life. And it's a little scary because sometimes weeks would pass by. I'm doing a lot of work. I'm coaching a lot of people. But if you ask me, Yasser, what do you remember from the past 2 weeks? I can't tell you anything. And sometimes those weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and I've done a lot of work, but I have no memories. I don't know what it is. So when I read the book made the case that we remember things in peak moments, things that are out of our norm, things that we do that we normally don't do, or things that are so out of our daily consistent routine that we remember them. So for example, if you went to Disneyland, if you went to a new restaurant, if you watched a movie, these are things you'll remember. A great example is try to think about the day your child was born, or remember your wedding, or remember your last birthday. Now try to remember what happens 4 days before that, or 4 days after that. You probably can't. You have no idea. Why? Because our brain remembers in moments, in peak moments. So when I was looking back at my year, I thought, man, I don't remember anything. Years are passing by and I've got no experience to show for it. I'm working so long that there's no peak moments in my life. So all of our life, it is governed by these moments, and it's up to us to realize we have to go out there and create these moments. Go meet new people, go to new locations, experience the world, because this is what will shape your life and shape your experience. One of the things, actually 2 things that I did, I got this little chart. It's called your life in weeks, and you just circle each week as the weeks are going by, and you can see how much of your life you've already lived and how much of your life is left. And it just created so much urgency in my life that, hey, I can't just afford to waste all this time. I don't know for sure if I'm going to live tomorrow. I have to make the most of my life right now. And there's so many tiny things that you can do. I remember I went to the grocery store and I was just paying for the groceries, and the cashier asked me, hey, is it cash or credit? And I said, it'll be credit. I just said that sentence, it'll be credit. And she looked up at me and said, hey, you sound like a podcaster. You should start a podcast. That's all she said. And I went home thinking about it, like, wow, she said I should be a podcaster. She liked my voice. Maybe I should do that. I'm still thinking about that. It's been years since that happened. So these are moments of significance, and it's so easy to create these in other people's lives, in your lives, and it adds urgency. Live your life in moments. Make other people's lives better by introducing these moments, introducing novelties. And one of the things you can do, he recommends in the book, is every single week on a Saturday or a Sunday, do something that is completely out of your element. Let's say you're usually at home and you're sleeping, sign up for a rock climbing class, sign up for an improv comedy class, sign up for a new restaurant, whatever. Just do something different, and this will create new memories and new moments that you will remember. So power of moments, really, really important. And I've also used it in my speeches to create these moments that people will remember. Now, this last book is going to piss off a lot of people, and I am completely okay with it. If this is not your cup of tea, that's fine. I'm not someone who worships celebrities. I'm not someone who looks at these successful people and say, oh, I want to be just like them. But I was in the plane, and one of the books that I saw was Walter Isaacson's book on Elon Musk. He wrote a biography on Elon Musk. Now, clearly, people have very strong opinions about Elon Musk. Some people love him, some people hate him, some people are in the middle. For me, I don't really care. I'm just curious how people conduct their life. This ended up being one of my absolute favorite books because of 3 reasons. The first one is just how raw the author is. The author spent time with Elon Musk in person, just documenting his day, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. And the way he narrates the book is just this observational, this is what I saw, this is what happened, this is what he said, this is what she said, these are the emotions that are reflected. And it's just such a real picture in the life of someone you can consider very successful in terms of business. I learned so much about Elon and how he runs his life, and just how much of it is so dangerous as a human being, how much of his behaviors can be so toxic and so negative, and how sometimes the price of success can be just being a terrible human being. That's one thing that I took away from it. The second thing is just how far Elon is willing to go to achieve his objectives. And I learned the difference between something that is improbable and something that is impossible. So for me, if you told me, hey Yasser, make $10 million this month, immediately I'd say that's impossible. There's no, how am I going to make $10 million this month? But I could win the lottery tomorrow. Maybe I get some sort of inheritance. Maybe I meet some friend and he said, hey, you know what? I don't need this money. Take this money. Any number of ways. So just because something is improbable or unlikely, I'll write it off as if it's impossible. But what Elon does is he thinks from what's called first principle thinking. I don't understand it too well, but my understanding of it is if under the laws of physics, this thing is not impossible, therefore it is possible, and therefore we will do it. Meaning, if the laws of nature do not prevent this thing from being possible, then we will achieve the goal. And I'll give you a perfect example. I have been working with many clients, coaching them on public speaking, and I'm charging $20,000 for every single client, sometimes $25,000 depending on the person I'm working with. And I thought, listen, I have no time. I'm working with clients all day, every day. How am I going to make more money? How am I going to grow my business? Because if a good business is not growing, it's stagnating, it's getting smaller. How am I going to do that? So one day, a client of mine says, hey, Yasser, I've got a conference coming up. Do you want to just come and speak at the conference? I said, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. So I spoke at the conference. People loved it. They recommended it to other people. A ton of people after that came to me and said, Yasser, you shouldn't even be doing this coaching thing. You should just be speaking on stage. I said, what do you mean? Like, you could make what you make for 2 months coaching people in 1 hour on stage. I said, okay, that's an interesting proposition. Just so happens that someone that week reached out to me and said, hey, Yasser, we've got a keynote coming up. How much do you charge? And I said, $25,000. Okay, sure, done. And I flew out, did the thing, everyone loved it, and every single request I got after that started at $25,000. Now, I went from making $20,000 per client to $25,000 per hour for my keynote. So if I thought that it is impossible or improbable and therefore impossible, I would have limited my beliefs, which I was doing for a very long time. So when I read this book, I realized, is this physically possible? If yes, then I will figure out how to do it. And it just broke something in my brain where every single time I want to do something and there's this internal chatter that, oh, this can't be done, you can't do this. Immediately I'll ask myself this question. Is this improbable or is it impossible? And if the answer is improbable, I will figure out how to do it. I can't tell you how many things, how many goals I've achieved in the last few months just by making that small shift. Just because something is hard doesn't mean it's impossible. In fact, most things worth doing are improbable. They are hard to do. If something came easy, most people would do it. So my biggest takeaway, I would say, was that one. And just a last bonus one was just one of the things that I related to Elon, and this is I would say it's a negative quality. I cannot stop working. I'm addicted to my work. I feel unhappy on vacations, and this is something I think most people don't share, and please don't look up to me for this. I am so glued to the work that I do, just helping people with their public speaking, with their communication, self-improvement. This is what shaped me into who I am today. And I want to help other people do the same thing. So I'm always thinking about it. I'm always reading books. There's always tons of books on my desk because this is just what I enjoy doing. So when I'm on vacation and I'm removed from the things that I enjoy most, I'm actually quite depressed. So when I read about Elon and just how much he works, he's working on one thing and then the other thing and then the other thing just to keep himself busy, and he goes on vacation and he just comes back and goes right back to work. A part of me got solace in that. A part of me related to that. And even though it's probably not the healthiest thing to do, I will say these periods of relentless focus where you might say, oh, well, you're not enjoying your life, there's no work-life balance. I would argue that my life is my work because my work brings me fulfillment. And if I'm not doing that, if I'm just coasting around watching TV shows, that is not life for me. Life for me is progression, and progression for me comes from work. So I was very happy to read that those qualities are not limited to me, and other people do that at a much, much, much more accelerated level. So those would be my main takeaways from that book. But I'm sure you had some amazing books you read. Let me know which ones those were in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.